I built this terminal Vissper application, which does transcripts. So I can speak into this microphone and it does a perfect polished transcription of what I just have said. And I can use it in meetings as well. So it's my meeting companion. And I can show you the result pretty quickly. However, I want to go into this video and talk more about vibe coding versus spec-driven development. Because this terminal Vissper application, I call it for Twisper, that was my first attempt. I had to do it all over again because I was vibe coding maybe a bit too much. And the problem was not really that vibe coding was the problem. The problem was that I was obsessed over quantity and not quality. So let me show you first this Twisper here, sorry. This application. I can start recording here and using the shortcut control space, and it would just start to record. And when I'm done, I get the transcription into the clipboard, so I can just paste it everywhere. And I used it basically in the beginning, so I didn't need to write texts or so. I could just talk to it. But it turned out it's perfect for meetings. And I have to show it in a moment what the result really is. So I added more and more features, which is great. And I felt I had total control over it. And I was so happy because every feature was just bang, bang, bang out there. And at the end, I was sitting there with the terminal Vissper application. And by the way, terminal, because it runs in the terminal. And it was not a native Mac application. And that was the challenge. So I used Electron then to make it a Mac application. So I get this terminal Vissper application into the status bar as I just told you. However, the file size just exploded. This little application was suddenly at, was it 500 or 600 megabytes, which is pretty hefty for such a tiny application. Yes. So basically, Twisper became unmaintainable, and it was not fun anymore to work with it because every feature I wanted to implement, everything I wanted to implement or just change took so much time because it was not possible for vibe coding or for my AI IDE to figure out what was it needed to change. There were some files that were at 3,000 lines of code because I didn't pay any attention. I didn't care. Quantity was what I wanted, and I got quantity, lots of code, unmaintainable. So, but before I tell you how soft spec-driven development really saved me, here's what I learned. Be obsessed with quality when you do vibe coding. And this boils really down to understanding context engineering. What goes into the context? Because I have the saying, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you just write a short sentence into your chat window, which is garbage out because you don't give it any context, nothing, the result is that you get something out. It's really this something, which is garbage at the end. And that doesn't help you. So you need to care. You need to care about the code base. And before vibe coding, you did this by default. Now you have to even pay more attention than you did before, because before it was you in full control all the time. Suddenly you have a co-pilot, somebody else, something else that does the job for you. So you need to pay attention what this something, this AI does for you. Your co-pilot is not your pilot. You are still the pilot, right? Then don't be religious about language frameworks, SDKs, because AI coding does everything for you and pretty quickly. So you don't need to, as I was, because I'm speaking here, I did this Node.js application, this terminal Vissper application, because I knew how to build this. I have done this before. I thought I have the overview. Quality-wise, nothing can get wrong. But I was wrong. Everything got wrong because I didn't pay attention to the code base. It exploded. Even though I understood the underlying concepts of the technology I was using. So, and that's where I decided to dive into something very, very unknown to me, but I had to do it in order to build a better Vissper application. So I dived into Mac native application with Swift basically. So I have never done this before. This was the first time, but since I have AI, AI can do everything for me, right? So I renamed this Twisper to Vissper, and I came across this new AI tool called Kiro, which does spec-driven development. You tell it what you want, it creates a specification file for you. Based on this specification, it creates a plan for you, an implementation plan or a design. And based on that, it creates a to-do list for you, which you then can give it to your Kiro IDE and say, go ahead, build it for me. And it does it. And it does a pretty good job. I also came across something called GitHub Spec-Kit. Maybe you have heard about it. Let me show you. So I built this new application called Vissper in Swift. I did it with Codex. No, I did it with Claude Code actually. Anyway, you would think, is this possible? Because don't you need Xcode for that? No. I mean, I use Xcode just for building it and starting the application for testing. But the development happens within Cursor using Codex or using Claude Code. I'm using Claude Code, but I'm here in Cursor, and yeah, that's the specs that I created. And I did this, it's called MeetSync, it's the project name, but I call it Vissper. You can go to vissper.com, VISSPER.com, to know and learn everything about the project. However, here are my specifications, and I started to create a specification here. So I have the input, that's my user description here. After we recorded and got the final response from LM, we are currently storing the final copy edited, blah, blah, blah. Right? So I did something before already. So here's the input that I gave it. Then it comes with an execution flow. No, you know what? I do something wrong. I think we need to do now, however, that's the documents that are provided here. Here's the user scenario, the user scenarios, primary user story. After a meeting, recording completes and the LLM finishes copy editing the transcript, the user wants to copy edit text automatically, blah, blah, blah. And here are many acceptance criteria, edge cases. Then comes the next requirements, functional requirements, and so on, right? For this one feature. So based on that, it does some research and so on. And then it creates a plan. That's the next step here, the implementation plan. How is this implemented based on the code base and the requirements that that it produced before? So you see, it's a document with also the source code, with the structure of the code, and basically everything it needs. Here's some contracts that I found very interesting. So it comes up and says something about the code here and the contracts. And then based on that, it does a to-do list here. Here's the to-do list. Where does it start? It starts here. T001 add markdown export configuration to global configuration.swift. And then number 2 and number 3, next phase, 3.2, test first, TDD, and so on. So it goes ahead and comes up with all those tasks, right? So now you can say, go ahead and go through the entire tasks lists and implement everything. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. However, what I want to say is that it creates contracts. It creates a data model.md file. It quick start, a research. There are so many files that are created that you can lose overview as well. But here's the trick. Your job is that's what I learned from doing this project. You need to vibe code the specification at the end. You need to vibe code those documents that are part of the context window when you create your application. Of course, you can go ahead and then say, I'm fine with the specification and the task list and so on. But you should pay attention, because this document is not only your document. It's the contract between you and the AI. What is in those files is what's implemented and how it's being implemented. And you should take these documents also with you to your colleagues, to the project manager, because you together own these documents. It's not only you. It's the AI, you, and all the other stakeholders that are involved, right? So, yes. So after a feature was implemented, I vibe coded the rest, obviously. So when it does a lot, and you can say implement all the features at once, or how I do it task by task or phase by phase, and then let me check what actually happens. Does it still compile and so on, even though it does a test? But you want to be very, very sure that it doesn't or didn't remove or introduce new errors into old features, for example, right? Let me show you the output of this, for example, this new Vissper application. First of all, here's this Vissper application, start recording, audio sources I can choose. I can choose the language that I want. So it just performs a bit better if I give it the language beforehand. And then I can start it. And what comes out is this here. It's a document with a summary, main points, and the full transcription. And I tested this with a video on YouTube from the, it's an interview with the engineers of Claude Code. And here's the main points, the full transcription, and the first sentence is always bold, so you can read it easier. And then you can take screenshots in between. So use the normal screenshots, shortcuts for the screenshots, and then those screenshots will be included into the transcript exactly where you took it, right? And then you can take this document and just share it with others, basically. So I have used this many times in meetings with other people. So I have this note, this summary here, and this transcription document, and then I share it with other people. And we know later what we have discussed, or you share it with people that haven't been in the meeting, which is very valuable. So currently this Vissper application is an Azure OpenAI implementation only. So there's no other way you can use it. It uses the GPT-4o transcript and GPT-4.1 for polishing it and creating summary and making it beautiful and so on. Yes. What's missing still is it should be simplified a bit when it comes to the first setup, because you need an application, an API key basically, because there's nothing centralized yet. And we want to maybe also have some other connections to OpenAI directly, or to Claude, for example, or other AI providers, so that we don't use only Azure OpenAI. Not everybody has Azure OpenAI. Others are maybe on Google or so, right? So those connections are missing still. So please, if you want, comment on this video if you want to maybe contribute to Vissper, because I think this tool is very valuable. It saves me a lot of time. I don't need to take notes. I can just listen and take screenshots in between, and then I'm done, right? Let me know if you want to contribute to this project. Would be very nice to do something with it. Have a nice day.